Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the This Week in Fantasy series. Today, it's a wonderful day. Opening day, Dallas versus the Buccaneers, first episode of TWIF to preview the matchups. And I have an exceptional guest with me today, the runner-up of last season and a guy who has sky-high fantasy and sports knowledge and is always an exceptional guest. It's the Honcho. What's going on, Jackson?
What's up, y'all? Let's get this going. I'm ready for this year.
We're both incredibly excited for this season, and frankly, I just can't wait to get this going. So, without further ado, we can preview the matchups and you can give your thoughts on your team and all of the teams as well. To me, this week one is one of the most exciting because once you get to like week 6 or 7, people can be 1-5, 0-6. They can feel down on themselves. But right now, it's just like being a Ranger fan on opening day. Even if you know your team's shit, you're still feeling yourself because everyone's 0-0. I think we should start with my matchup first. Ben, the art of the balance wine, and we can start it off with the QBs because that's an interesting matchup. Lamar Jackson, a guy that you took very early on a couple years ago, facing off against Matt Stafford. Stafford is in a new place this year, of course, LA. He's got that Sean McVay guzzlefest offense. The Rams don't have a first-round pick for years. They're all in on this season, and Stafford looks to lead a high-powered offense. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on how do you think the Rams are going to be this season? He's certainly going to do better than Goff, right?
Yeah, I think that, if you would have asked me last year at the start of the year, what do the Rams need to like get over the top? I would have sat there and I would have been like, I think Goff's a good enough guy. But I really do like the addition of bringing a veteran like Stafford. Everybody knows how Stafford is. He's not the top quarterback in the league, but he's going to get it done for you. And my thing is I think what Goff couldn't bring to the table, I think Stafford can bring to the table. And I really do think that they're going to be pretty successful this year. If you think about Stafford, his entire career, he's never really had a good team around him. And being, in Detroit, and I really think that he's going to excel with a good team around him. I think where you had to draft Stafford at, you got him later. I think that's a really good. I think it was a really good value pick. That I think he's going to be a serviceable guy throughout the year. And on the other hand, with Lamar, I drafted Lamar real early last year, like round 2, round 3, and he did not pan out like a second or third round pick. I think Ben got him at a little bit more reasonable like area, like round 5, 6, 7. I don't know exactly when he got him. And then the injuries to their running backs, I don't think it does anything but makes the value of Lamar Jackson go up. His legs, Gus Edwards tore his ACL today. J.K. Dobbins tore his ACL last week. So they're already depleted at the running back position. It's going to put even more and more on Lamar Jackson. So, I think both these quarterbacks are good matchup-wise. Lamar on Monday night versus the Raiders. I'm loving that. Big-time Lamar, big-time game. And then the Bears have a pretty good defense. It's a Sunday night game. Stafford's first game. I give the edge to Lamar, but I think that Stafford has a serviceable game.
I agree, and you're kind of fading in and out, so make sure you're speaking directly into your mic. We want our fans to be able to hear every word you say. If I look at,
Oops.
we sound way better when you did that. Anyway, I think Lamar Jackson, obviously a running quarterback, the way that points scale in this league as well as all normal leagues, it allows Lamar to have these potential to have just absolutely tremendously huge games. And if you're a Rams fan, you're all in on this season. You've got to be looking at Stafford and saying, we had Goff for years. He brought us to a Super Bowl. That was sort of middling. But now it's all in on the Highland Park right-armed quarterback. He's got to sling it. He's got a lot of weapons. Wood, Cup. And if I'm a Matt Stafford owner, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, the Rams are going to win at least 11 games. And this is an offense that is always projected to be not only high powered but creative as well. So as far as the running backs go here, I want you to sort of talk about Miles Sanders and Saquon. Saquon coming off of a bad injury on a bad team. Miles Sanders on a Philly team that can't get out of its own way. And I look at these two guys and I say to myself, well, they are the solo backs of their team, but I don't really have a whole lot of trust in them as far as talent goes. Saquon had a great rookie year, but he's been banged up since. So what are your thoughts on these running backs from the NFC East? Do you think they have the longevity to keep going and be really good?
Um, I don't like having. I have Miles Sanders in one of my other leagues. I'm really a huge fan of Miles Sanders just for the fact that the Eagles tend to like to use like a lot of different backs and stuff like that. So, but at the end of the day, he is, considered the number one running back in that offense. So, I mean, and he's a good pass catching back, so you have opportunities there. Um, what I would say is, Saquon is like very hit or miss. He could have like a huge year like he did 2 years ago and be a great player for you. At the same time, because of the injuries, because he's really not on that great of a team, he could like underwhelm. What I think is like kind of, I mean, it's kind of fitting for this week one matchup. I feel like both your running backs, like both on both teams, like, Swift, he's supposed to be a pretty good back. Had to get him kind of early, but at the same time, you don't really know what you're going to get out of him. And I kind of compare that to Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders is a little bit higher than Swift. And then like Mixon and Barkley, I feel like they're kind of like similar in the sense that they have like really high expectations on the year, but are they really going to pan out the way that they're supposed to? So I mean, I would say in this matchup, I say you win the matchup because I think Sanders is a little bit better than Swift, and he's got a better matchup. I look at that Atlanta Philly game to be a high scoring game,
Agreed.
and then I mean Mixon and Barkley, I think that's like a wash. Like I think both of them probably will score about the same amount of points.
Like a dozen, 12,
Yeah,
15.
yeah. I think Swift's 12-point projection's a little high. And I think Sanders' 10-point projection's a little low. But, I mean, you also, with Ben, he's got Mike Davis as well. That shouldn't be a bad start. But I don't know if he's going to be just a serviceable guy week in and week out. I feel like Atlanta passes the ball a lot, and I don't know how big he's going to be in the offense.
I totally agree. I expect Atlanta, even though they lost Julio Jones, to continue to air it out. As far as Swift goes, I look at that Detroit team and see a team that had an above-average quarterback for years and was a perennial laughingstock, getting the most overrated quarterback in recent NFL history in terms of Goff. If you remember, when the Rams made the Super Bowl, people were pretending Goff was a top 5 guy. People were comparing him with Brady and Rodgers and the other elites and just getting so high on their own supply. I expect Detroit to just get embarrassed and decimated this season. I'm super low on Detroit. I'm super low on the Dallas Cowboys. What would you put like the over/under at for Detroit wins? Like if it's at 4.5,
4.5.
yeah,
I
over/under
would say
on that.
like 4.
Yeah,
I would say under 4.5.
I'm right there with you. If the over/under is 4.5, I'm taking the under. I think they're really going to struggle. I think Goff is going to be exposed. He'll be out of the league in a couple years, and I think it'll be this hilarious aberration where in some ways we sort of think of him almost as like a Rex Grossman-like figure. He's going to go...
Well,
Go ahead.
I just feel like everything goes to die in Detroit.
Yes.
It's kind of like the thing, and it's kind of like the way Goff's career started off. California kid getting put in on a really good team. Making it to the Super Bowl in that like second or third year, and you're kind of like, well, is this the Rams or is Goff going to be like a really good guy? And I feel like the nail in the coffin was them shipping him out to Michigan. I don't really think he'll ever recover. He's probably going to be a fucking high school football coach before we fucking know it. You know what I mean?
Agreed wholeheartedly. This is a guy who it's not as though he's Jamarcus Russell or the worst guy in the league, but he is one of these players who got way more credit than he deserved, and because of the pieces around him, including coaches and receivers, I think established a reputation far beyond his actual ability. But we can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we nailed that one as far as the Rams and Detroit go. We're on the same page with that. And if you look at the receivers here, I think it's interesting because both of my guys, Keenan Allen and Scary Terry McLaurin, are on sort of middling average teams, but they're the funnel of the receiving offense. I think Justin Herbert is due for a big year. He looked good his rookie season. Scary Terry has Fitzmagic throwing to him. Neither of these guys are going to blow your doors off like a prime Adams, but they are going to get their fair share of targets. Which, if you look at Ben's guys, Hill and Higgins, Higgins looked sharp with Burrow last year, but he's still sort of unproven, and Tyreek Hill's like a 5 or 30 point guy, no in between. So I look at sort of like the duality of man here. My receivers are locked in for 10 to 15, I think, and Ben's receivers could either solo win him the game or solo lose him the game. Do you think I'm off base with this, or do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that your two guys are, more on a consistent average that they're probably going to get you around 10. And, with Higgins and Hill, yeah, they're either both going to go off and he's going to get 40 out of his receivers and be set, or he's going to get, 15 or 20 out of them. And it's, not, but I will say I like the T Higgins pick. I'm high on T Higgins.
Me too.
He was a waiver wire. See, my thing is I like guys that are waiver wire guys the year before, where you pick them up at a cheap value, and then the thing is you gotta stay with it, and Ben picking T Higgins, that's a staying with it, continuing where he left off from last year. He definitely had the best chemistry with Burrows throughout the year. So I mean, I think T Higgins is a solid pick. Not to mention you have Lockett. Lockett's a guy that's going to either score 30 or maybe 6. He's a guy that can go off every single week. So I honestly I kind of like Lockett over McLaurin. On a week to week basis. Now McLaurin is a really good player too. Got a lot of upside. But, all three of those receivers are going to be nice receivers throughout the year.
Yeah, to me, they're real consistent. Like, these aren't guys who are going to take a dump in your mouth at the 2-point game. They might not score 25, but lots of target share across the board. Now, I want to get your thoughts on Noah Fant. This is a guy that I think is somewhat overrated and overhyped. I don't expect much from him this season, and I think that tight end is actually my weakest position. I elected to go with the Philly combo of Goddard and Ertz because Philly doesn't have any good receivers other than the Alabama rookie. And I'm of the opinion that if Philly's going to score through the air, it's going to be through the tight ends quite a bit. So what are your thoughts on Noah Fant, and who do you think's favored in that matchup? Because I don't really like either.
Well, I chose Noah Fant last year around round 7 or 8, and he had a really good week 1 on the Monday night game. And then he got hurt either later in that game or he got hurt a couple weeks after that or something. And then he was kind of just injured throughout the year. Something that I'm kind of thrown off about is the fact that he's projected 8 points, but his backup is also projected 6. So to me, I think Fant could potentially miss out on some of the targets that go to that other tight end. And I guess my question for you on the Goddard Ertz thing is I don't really look at it as you're going to be able to pick one guy each week to start. It's almost like you're going to have to figure out which one is the guy that's popping off, which in that offense, I just kind of feel like it could be either guy, whatever week. You don't ever know if Ertz is going to catch the tutties or if Goddard's going to catch the tutties.
True.
And I think what I was the most surprised about, though, is just how Goddard on every list was higher than Ertz, even though Ertz has been a top 5 tight end, over the last 5 to 7 seasons. Yeah, he fell off last year and the contract dispute type stuff, and then they have Goddard, who they're trying to kind of pass the torch to type situation. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm asking you, what made you decide to draft Ertz and Goddard? What was your thought process behind that?
Well, my thoughts on that were that Philly didn't have a legitimate receiver other than the rookie to go to, so I thought if they were going to score over the air, it would be via the tight end. Now, Ertz was the bigger name, so I took him first because I thought in the way that our league works with people that really understood name recognition as opposed to like current depth chart so much that if I got Ertz and then Goddard, it would work in a way that even though I think Goddard will start, I'm going to be able to put in Ertz if one of them gets hurt or one of them becomes the winning guy. And it's sort of funny because I think this is the biggest weakness of my team, and I was sort of considering like making a move for Kittle with AB. Then I started asking myself, wouldn't that help him more than it would help me? And if that's the case, since he's in my division, do I even want to do that? And if I do, I would want to do it after week 3, unless Goddard and Ertz are absolutely terrible. So that's sort of why I did that, to hedge my bets, and because I think Philly doesn't have any interesting receivers. But I would agree that it's a weak point in my team.
I would say that you probably win the matchup. Just like playing at Atlanta, they're going to give up a touchdown most likely to a tight end.
Yeah, soft defense.
I mean, Giants defense isn't really anything to write home about, but I just feel like there's a lot of other options that could be potentially thrown to instead of Fant. Not just talking about the wide receivers, but the other tight end that they have. And then, I feel like Denver's the type of team, when they get on the goal line, they want to run the ball.
Yeah.
So, I feel like they're going to be able to pound the Giants. So, I don't know. I think you win the matchup. The only question is, do you start the right game? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's a brutal choice for me because I really have to decide, is it going to be Ertz or Goddard every week? And I honestly think that they might use quite a few two tight end sets or swap them out a decent amount. So that's just something that I'm going to have to keep my eye on target-wise. And if it's untenable, then I might have to look to trade AB because he's really the only one with tight end help. Just to quickly touch on the special teams here, I think Harrison Butker's on the best offense in the league. Andy Reid's got his Waffle House menu full of plays, calling them motherfuckers up. And I think Butker's like a guaranteed top 5 guy. And I think the Bills have a pretty soft schedule. So is there anything that you want to say about kicker and special teams before we try to predict the matchup?
No, I like Butker, and then I like Bills defense. I think Bills defense was super low on the list of defenses, and I think that they're going to have a solid year. I think the thing that people don't really put in consideration when you talk about the Bills is that offense is going to be scoring and scoring and scoring, and you're going to have to keep up with them. So it's going to force you to push the envelope on the offensive end, and that's when the Bills create turnovers and stuff like that. So I think the Bills are a good defense. Packers, they're going to be serviceable for Ben. I feel like they have a better matchup than the Bills do this week at New Orleans. I really don't think Jameis Winston is going to do a whole lot. The game's in Jacksonville. It's not in the Dome or anything like that. And then Bass, obviously, I just talked about how the offense scores a lot. I think Bass is a guy that, he was a waiver wire guy last year. People didn't know a whole lot about him. But I think he's going to be a serviceable kicker this year. Do give the edge to Butker, though.
I agree. Do you think that Bass will finish top 10 in kicker points this season?
I'd say top 10, top 15. He's going to be up there with some of the better kickers. It's just really going to depend on, does he make his kicks, because you know how kickers are. They'll get replaced if, they miss a couple of kicks. So I think he's on the right team to be able to produce at a top 10 level. That's what I will say.
Agreed. I think sometimes with the kickers, it's more about their offense and their actual leg power. Yeah. It's sort of like I had Justin Tucker last year. Most accurate.
Well, think about Koo. Koo is not like a fucking deep kicker, but fucking Matt Ryan is the king of getting you fucking 30 or 40 yard field goal. You know what I mean? And so boom, there's 3 or 4 points every time the Falcons touch the ball. It's like.
Well, and do you remember when the Saints were in their prime and they had James Carney, and it was the Saints would score 35 points a game, it'd be all extra points, if your kicker never kicks a field goal, even if the offense is god tier, it can sort of bite you in the ass. I'm a little worried about that with Butker, but not so much. So, who would you?
Okay, so when I'm looking at this, the projection is way the hell off. it's got Ben as a 15-point favorite, but I'm trying to figure out like where these 15 points are.
Yeah, me too. Mike Davis, I
I
think,
mean,
jumps out at me, though.
yeah, that and the Tyreek Hill getting, projected the 14 that he's projected. I mean, and T Higgins, with the 9 he's projected. I mean, it. My thing is I think Keenan Allen's going to score more than that. I think Terry McLaurin's going to score more than that.
Agreed.
I think Butker scores more than that. I mean, I really think these projections are a little throwed. We show the benches just so I can see what y'all are working with on y'all's bench.
Absolutely.
See, like, yeah, I mean, I would keep on both these teams. I would start who y'all are starting. So there's nothing really on the bench that I would change or anything like that. The only thing that you like potentially could do is like how you're feeling about OBJ.
No.
If you're like
Yes.
oh, I'm gonna throw OBJ in here and like hope that he goes off for 20 type situation. Like that's the only thing that I might do to switch anything. But you have the other 3 guys that you're starting are way more consistent.
Real consistent.
I mean, this might sound crazy, but like I'm really thinking. I know this probably sounds like, oh, we're doing the podcast together, and I don't know why, but like I just feel like Ben's teams, even though they're projected good, they underachieve like a motherfucker. And I think this is going to be another week where his team just underachieves like a motherfucker, and I think your team will overachieve. So I think that even with the projections, the way they look, I'm still taking you to win the game.
I agree. I think I'll win 102-98, and I think that Swift is going to have 7 or less points. I think Swift sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of misprojection.
Yeah.
Whenever you draft and NFL.com emails you your like projected record and draft grade, I got like a C-. They said I'd win 1 game. It's like 1 game.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I was like 9th place, supposed to be like 5-9 or 6-9. And I mean, I'm just like, well, I don't know who the fuck's making these rankings and shit, because I sure as hell I'm not going to be 5-9 at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And 9th place,
Agreed.
Like I wish they would take in like track record.
That would be nice. It does fucking keep track of that on the website, so theoretically they could do that. But let's move on. I felt like we were definitely on the same page with that game. We can move on to Clap 4 and Lily. A little bit of father-daughter rivalry. And at the top of the matchup, what jumps out at me is 2 premier fantasy names at quarterback. Mahomes, whose reputation speaks for itself as a really strong-arm gunslinger. Josh Allen, one of the fastest white boys around. This motherfucker racks up rushing yards and is great for fantasy. I knew he would go early this year. Thought it would be to Ben or Spence, not Lily, but I think she factors in handsomeness more than we do, and she took Allen early. She also has both of the Cleveland running backs, which sort of cooks my noodle a bit. Some people would say that this is good. Other people would say that she reached for Hunt. So what are your thoughts on the top of these lineups here, Jax?
It's kind of like when you make the decision that you're going to draft Chubb in the first round, you kind of tell yourself then, okay, I'm not touching Kareem Hunt because I have the best back in Cleveland.
Right.
And I guess you went with the route of, the Cleveland's going to run the ball a lot this year, and I'm just going to plug both these guys in every week and hope that they get serviceable amount of points. And it may pan out, but I'm under the impression that it's probably not going to pan out. And I feel like, wow, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's certain games that teams have bad games. So why would you want to like have 2 players from the same team and they both have what if they both have a bad game?
True. Like what if they fall behind?
Yeah. It's one thing if you have Kareem Hunt on your bench as like a backup plan if Chubb gets hurt, but it's very evident that that's our number 2 running back, and so it just kind of to me just really throws things off. I'm in the category that I would never do something like that.
I agree.
And then,
it puts a hard ceiling on your production. I feel like they're not going to combine for 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the Goddard and Ertz situation. It's
Yeah.
like you don't know which one's really going to pop off, but it's probably a better idea to have Chubb on your team. And in my eyes, I think it'd be better to have Goddard on your team because I think he's going to have a better year than Ertz. But there's going to be certain weeks where Ertz and Hunt are the ones that have a better game than the supposed starters. So I mean. But yeah, no, I don't like the stack, really at all.
I agree with you on that. Now moving on to the receivers, we see a couple big names here for Clap for. Mike Evans, this tall, towering guy who used to reel in 15 touchdowns a year, and Amari Cooper, a premier route runner. But if you look at both of these guys, their value this season is significantly reduced compared to what it was, say, 3 years ago. These are guys on offenses with a lot of weapons, a lot of targets. With the Cowboys, you got CeeDee Lamb, Zeke, and Gallup, and those underachieving tight ends. And then Tampa, my God, it's like a freaking Pro Bowl team. It's like an all-star roster, with all the weapons they got. So, 3 years ago, this would be a hell of a 1-2 punch. Now, both of these guys are like low tier 1 to me. Maybe even like really high tier 2. What do you think on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these are your type of guys that would be considered big names.
Yep.
So like people know them. People are like, "Oh, this is a really good guy," but like these guys are kind of like I don't want to say on the back half of their career because they still should be in their prime, but I just don't think that they are going to produce the way that they have produced in the past. They're more of a big name at this point. And you're going to have good weeks out of them. But at the same time, you know what I mean? Are these guys that you want to have on your roster, per se, on a week-to-week basis? And I'm not a big fan of Amari Cooper. Like the wide receiver that I want, receiver would be Lamb. And I like Mike Evans. I drafted him in another one of my leagues. But like you said, I mean, AB didn't produce until the last couple of weeks of the year. I think he's due for a big year. And if you go over there and you look at Lily's team, that's who's sitting over there in her flex spot is Antonio Brown. So when I'm looking at this matchup, like Lily her weakness is her running back, but Kevin starting fucking Leonard Fournette, like a guy that's in like a backfield with like 4 other running backs. Giovanni Bernard's a Buccaneer now. Ronald Jones is considered the starter. It's just like Fournette's not gonna. I would take Hunt over Fournette any day of the week. And
Totally
then, I mean,
agree.
Jonathan Taylor's good, but Jonathan Taylor's Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb definitely wins that battle. And then, like at the end of the day, I'm thinking Hopkins. Hopkins is going to score more points than Evans and Cooper combined.
Yeah, Hopkins is going to have a big year in that aired out offense. He was one of the guys I was targeting in the draft.
And Nelson Aguilar is just a baller. Like, I mean, he went to the Raiders last year and he performed. You know what I mean? Like, and Belichick saw it and Belichick picked him up. Like, if you don't think he's going to be a big part of the Patriots offense this year, then, I mean, you just weren't paying attention to what he was doing for the Raiders last year. Like, he had a really good year last year.
What are your thoughts on the Patriots as a whole? Last season, there was this big question in the offseason, who's going to perform better, Brady or Tom? Whose team is going to finish with more wins? Buccaneers went on to win the Super Bowl. Patriots missed the fucking playoffs. What do you expect from the Patriots this year, and specifically their offensive production?
I just feel like you have to, that's a question that you have to start off with. What did Belichick have to do last year, like to start this new process? And it's kind of like the whole Cam Newton thing didn't work out. Like it could have been a flash in the pan, might have lasted for like a season until he found his quarterback. But it was just a shit show last year. And I think at the end of the day, I think Belichick kind of knew it was going to be a shit show. And his best bet was to try to get the highest draft pick as possible. He got his guy that he wanted in Mac Jones, and now Mac Jones is the starter. This is a complete rebuild year to me for the Patriots. I think the Bills run that division.
Agreed.
I think the Dolphins are going to be a better team in that division, and they're going to surprise some people this year. And I think the Jets are going to be dog shit, but I think that
Yes.
they're going to be in a couple of games. I really do think that the Jets will be in a couple of games, and I think the Zach Wilson kid will have an all right year.
The
I
Jets,
think that the Jets.
they're at
Go
least
ahead.
moving in the right direction, the Jets. They're not with like
Yeah.
Gase anymore. They're not going to be good, but it's not like a pissed away season like it was last
Yeah,
year.
I mean, the 49er defensive coordinator that they got, their team's going to be way more defensive minded. I feel like it's a good better hire than fucking Adam Gase.
Yes.
And so I just think that if people that are like expecting the Patriots to like have a winning record, I think it's all about expectations. I don't have a lot of expectations for the Patriots. If the Patriots were to go 6-10, I feel like that'd be a serviceable year. Like this entire year is all about developing Mac Jones.
Yes.
That's all this year is about. And I think that honestly, I think that he's going to develop throughout the year, and I think that they're going to be a good team next year because I think he's going to continue to build his defense. He did add a good amount of people this offseason. Like he's building for the future. Like I think a lot of people are like, oh, Tom Brady left and Bill Belichick, he really ain't shit. And he's just kind of over there in his little cave, and he's just plotting on what he's about to pull off in the next couple of years. I just think that this is kind of like Belichick needed a new challenge in his life, and this is going to be his new challenge, is like rebuilding the fucking Kansas City Jayhawks / Patriots.
I agree, and I think when I look at Belichick's career, even though obviously his legacy is pretty damn well established, everyone agrees he's God tier, it's going to be important for him in the next 2 to 3 years to at least show that he can go in the right direction. If the Pats have the second or third worst record this year, and then the year after they look even worse, it's going to be a huge blemish on Belichick's legacy, especially if Brady looks God tier. I don't think that'll happen, though. I think they'll turn around to average in the next couple years. Definitely the Bills' division to lose this season, though. I think you already said that. So one thing I want to ask you before we predict the matchup is about young Kyle Pitts, the exciting rookie out of Florida. What are your expectations for this fella, and how good do you think he'll be in the NFL?
I think it really just depends how they incorporate him into the offense. If he is like he has the athletic ability to do what they did with Jimmy Graham in New Orleans, where they slot him out to the wide receiver position. He's quick enough to play that. Now, a lot of offensive linemen are like, put this guy on the line. Like, I will blow this kid up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
So I think that's going to be a big deal, is if he can block or not. Now, playing in Atlanta, that's not as big of a deal because they don't really run the ball that much.
True.
I think, a lot of people are talking about Kyle Pitts as like the guy. And I think the guy that's going to excel the most out of the offense for the Falcons is Russell Gage. I think the fact that Julio's gone, I know that him and Matt Ryan have a real good chemistry together. He showed some good flashes last year, and now the fact that Calvin Ridley is going to be, commanding the double teams and the better cornerbacks, I think Russell Gage is the guy that's going to really excel this year. I have mixed feelings about Pitts. These aspirations that Pitts is going to be a top 5 tight end, I don't think that's going to be true.
Agreed.
But I think he's going to be like a serviceable guy. But I think a lot of people, where you drafted him at, you're drafting him with the intent that, he's going to be just going off, and he's just going to fill in the spot Julio was at type situation, and he's just going to eat up a bunch of targets. And I think that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get kind of like, it's kind of like the hype that people have had on like Gesicki or like Mark Andrews. You know what I mean? Like there's just like they're going to have good games. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you're not getting Kelsey, Kittle, Waller numbers this year. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that, but.
I agree wholeheartedly. Some people are already anointing this guy like he's going to turn in 180 points for shizzle. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, he'll be good. Yeah, he'll show
He
flashes of
was by far
athleticism.
the best player in the draft. Now he wasn't drafted first overall because they go for those quarterbacks real early.
Right, he was
But
taken fourth.
he was and so he going into it, he's looked as the most ready NFL player, and I just don't know if his size is going I think the whole size thing is going to be a big issue once he gets on an NFL field of just when I watched him in college, he looked like a wide receiver. He
Right.
didn't even look like a tight end on a college football field. So he's really not going to look like a tight end on an NFL field.
It makes perfect sense, and I agree with your sentiment that he'll be lining up in the slot quite a bit. I think in terms of his blocking ability, they're going to be trying to hide that, and they really want to use him sort of as more of a hybrid, but hopefully he can develop into a better blocker as his career progresses. So I think we should go ahead and predict the matchup. I want to hear what you have to say first.
I think Lily wins. I think even though Mahomes is going to go off for probably 30, Allen's going to be right there in the 20 to 25 range. I think her running backs beat his running backs. I think Hopkins single-handedly beats Cooper and Evans. I don't think Randall Cobb is going to do a whole lot. He's got a projection that he's not going to get. I think AB catches a tutty tonight. I'm calling it.
Agreed.
And then Hawkinson definitely over Ebron for sure. I think Hawkinson could have a big game. I mean, what other fucking players do they have to throw to? And fucking Goff has probably been him and Hawkinson are probably BFFs on that damn team. So, and then unless Koo is going to somehow score 30 points, 20 points, I really don't see a way that Kevin's going to win this matchup. I think Hopkins is going to be way too strong, and if Hawkinson gets her 10, as good as it is to have Mahomes, when you're countering Mahomes with another good QB that's going to be, going to get another get you 20, the Mahomes thing doesn't really pan out for you that well.
Agreed.
Just a bad matchup for him.
Anytime you analyze a Mahomes team, if they're facing a mid-tier guy like Stafford, it's Mahomes could pop off, but especially when you're facing a really talented rushing guy like Allen, you look at Mahomes and all of a sudden it becomes less impressive. So I agree wholeheartedly. Give me Lily in this matchup, say a 92 to 88. Here we have an exceptionally exciting matchup between you and one of the most intelligent, kind-hearted owners in the league. That's Weston. And just eye-fucking this matchup a bit, your team has a lot of big names on it. The best player in the league, C-Mac. A guy in Edwards-Helaire that's on a high-powered offense. DK Metcalf, very explosive. Mozart, a guy in a run offense. But really, I think the crux of the issue here is Jalen Hurts. What made you decide to take an unproven guy like Jalen Hurts?
That's what you think. All I've heard all offseason is this is gonna be the year he takes off. I think the fact that he runs the ball, I think the fact that the Eagles are gonna be in a lot of just big games that just go down to the wire. I just think he's gonna be in a position where he's gonna have opportunities to get a lot of points. Now, last year I picked up Hurts round week 14 or 15, and I started him one of the weeks, and he won me. He got me 30 points one of the weeks. Then the next week he literally shit the bed and lost. I lost the championship with him as my quarterback. So it's kind of a continuation of last year. And you got to also understand at round 6. A lot of the quarterback, I think I drafted them around 6. I want to say a lot of the quarterbacks on at this point.
Yeah.
I think I was going to wait on Brady, and then Brady got picked, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do Tannehill and Fisker because I really like the tight end for the Titans. And then Tannehill went a couple picks before that, and I was like, okay, either I'm going to get stuck with Ryan Fitzpatrick, or I'm going to get stuck with a Stafford type guy, which I would have been happy with Stafford. But I just was this is the opportunity to take a QB. And so I was I'm kind of more on the upside of Hurts than I am on the downside of Hurts.
Right.
And I really wanted to get Goddard in one of those later rounds, and then you took him pretty much pretty soon right before I was about to take him. but I was going to try to get a little discount double points with Goddard and Hurts going. I don't know. Like, the thing is, Hurts could go either way. I'm kind of leaning towards that he's going to have a serviceable year. I mean, but at the same time, like, I think it's crazy. Like, I asked somebody, I'm like, when I drafted Hurts in this other league, talking about this league, I was like, I like, people were kind of surprised that I took Hurts where I took Hurts. And I was like, I need your honest opinion. You know what I mean? Like, are you like, what? And like the kid that I asked was like, I'm honestly high on Hurts. And the other 4 people in the room were like, yeah, I don't think Hurts is going to be very good this year. So it's an unpopular opinion. But that's the thing about fantasy. If sometimes these unpopular things pan out, you're set. So I look at it as like, if Hurts does pan out, my team is going to be really good. Yeah. If Hurts doesn't pan out, I'm gonna have a hole at my quarterback position, and I'm gonna be fishing all year playing QB streamer like I did a couple years ago.
Yep.
Which is no fun.
That is no fun. You're comfortable with that though, with your level of ownership.
I've done it before, but I mean, I understand that over the last like 3 years, there's been a guy on the waiver wire that nobody drafts that is serviceable all year. Like 3 years ago, it was Alex Smith. Nobody drafted Alex Smith, and he was just going off.
Yep.
Like last year or 2 years ago, it was Fitzmagic. I know 1 year it was Kirk Cousins. So, like, the thing is there's a guy on the waiver wire right now that we don't know who's going off, but there's someone going to go off. You know what I mean?
Usually Washington's quarterback throwing to Scary Terry. Yeah. Seems like, at least, Also, the point you made about Hurts ties into what you said earlier about Ben's guy, Higgins, where you get him at the end of the year as a pickup, and then in the next season you still believe in him. So that makes perfect sense. And looking at West,
that's the thing. I had knowledge of like what Hurts was doing fantasy wise, like those last couple of weeks last year, because I had him, on one of my teams, and I was starting him, and so. I don't know. I just felt like once Hurts started to get to play and get in a rhythm, I felt like he was looking better than he did.
How well do you think Hurts is going to rush this season? Because a lot of people who are high on him are really looking to that to be where he gets a lot of his fantasy points. Think he's going to do a lot of damage on the ground this season? I mean, you must have. You fucking drafted him.
I think for me, that's what made me want to pick him in this league where you only get 4 points for a touchdown, which, I mean, that's normal. I play in a couple of leagues where the quarterbacks get 6 points for a touchdown. But I think that it's important in one of these standard leagues to have one of those dual threat quarterbacks that does have the potential to get some runs. And I don't know. I feel like I guess at the end of the day, in my opinion, the upside of what Hurts can do is bigger than the downside of what Hurts is going to do. Because if Hurts has a downside, then I'm just going to waiver wire a guy, and I might have to play QB streamer for the rest of the year. But if Hurts pans out, I have a solid quarterback. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Josh Allen. Everybody's really high on Josh Allen this year. Was anybody high on Josh Allen last year? No. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Josh Allen is getting Josh Allen got picked where Hurts is getting picked because you didn't know if he was going to pan out or not.
True.
So let's say Hurts pans out, and then you look like a fucking genius. Okay, he doesn't pan out. You just go to the waiver wire and fucking pick up an old guy that's going to be serviceable,
like a Fitzmagic, like we were talking about.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense. Honestly, I'm glad I asked because a lot of people were curious as to why you did it. Whenever you took Hurts, I thought you were going to go with the defending Heisman winner, the rookie that he used to play with in Alabama that he loves to throw to. Thought you were going to stack those guys for discount double points, but you went in a different direction. Obviously, you had the first overall pick, so you got to do back-to-back, but when I look at...
And I will say, I do not like drafting like that. I like having like a pretty even pick each round because then I can kind of like attack what I need. And when you draft like that, you basically, I look at it as it's better just to draft the two best available players unless like you need a spot, like you need a quarterback or something like that. So I really don't like drafting like that. But that's how the cookie crumbles. So you gotta deal with it the best you can.
Was there any trepidation or question as to who you would take first overall, or was it going to be 100% C-Mac?
Honestly, when I found out I had the first pick, I sat there and I told myself, you don't want C-Mac. Because I was trying to sit there and think of like, this is a non-PPR. So like at the end of the day, Derrick Henry might be the best back in the draft because he's going to get the most touchdowns and the most yardage on the ground. But then again, I'm just like, it's kind of like after I started thinking about it, and two, I wanted to fuck with Christian because Christian had like the third or fourth pick, so I knew it was going to be
affecting him.
I knew it was going to like fuck with him, like he didn't know who he was going to get stuck with or whatever, and so I was like, you know what, I think it'd be dumb, like it's going to be really bad to look back at this and think that I didn't take McCaffrey. So I just went ahead and took the most 100% guy, the guy that you can trust. Cook, to me, Cook is always kind of like an injury prone. The injury prone is always there for Cook. And then like it was basically down to McCaffrey or Henry. And I just felt like if I've done other drafts and I've been able to get Henry 3 or 4 consistently, then you got to go with McCaffrey and just leave, Henry for somebody else. That's kind of how, I took that. The one guy that I really didn't want was Kamara.
Yes.
Like, Kamara was the guy I didn't want. So, like, I'm really glad I wasn't 4 or 5 in any of my drafts because I feel like that's a prime area where you get stuck with Kamara. I really didn't even want Zeke. Honestly, if I had, like, the 6th pick, I would have took Eckler. Like, Eckler, wow. I think, is going to have. I just think that obviously you're not going to get the production out of your tight end as Kelsey, but it gets to a point where like when you think that you're a good fantasy owner, you're willing to like understand that I can play matchups week to week, and I can probably fit a tight end that's going to get me 10 points. Yeah, sometimes I'm going to miss on the hit, but like most of the time I can pretty much pick a tight end that's going to at least give me some serviceable points off their matchup. So like my thing is why waste a first round pick on a tight end when you can get a running back right there? Like I'm pretty much like always going to go for a running back the first 2 to 3 rounds.
That makes perfect sense, and I'm in the same boat. I mean, for Christ's sake, you have to start 2 of them. The only thing about Kelsey is he's like it seems as though even if you compare him to Waller and Kittle, he is like a cut above. Like he's insane, but obviously he was.
My thing about the draft too is like it's all about value. Like you don't ever reach for anybody. You have to get them at the right value. So like, okay, let's say I had the 12th pick and Kelsey's sitting there. Yeah, I might take Kelsey at 12, but in all the drafts that I did this year, he was either picked like 5 through 8. Right. And to me, that's too high. Even the player that he is, even if like at the end of the year it shows that he scored the 5 most fantasy points out of anybody, to me, I'm not going to draft a guy unless I feel like I kind of am like stealing, and like they don't really allow you to steal Kelsey. So he's a guy I just leave.
Agreed. He went off 5th overall in this draft.
Auto pick.
Yeah, garbage. Absolute garbage.
Auto.
When I look at Weston's team here, seems pretty damn top heavy, especially if you go by name value. Russell Wilson, like a perennial top 10 guy. Zeke, hella overrated. I stayed way the hell away from him and every other Cowboy. I think the Cowboys are going to falter this season. Robinson, another big name guy that Weston likes. Then Thielen and Diggs I think are very good. But at the bottom half of Weston's team here, we have a suspect Patriots defense, the kicker on a shit offense, a flex guy on a run offense, and Hooper Pooper who's never been that good. That makes me give you the advantage. Because with McCaffrey and Edwards, I think you punch right up there with them at the top, but you have the advantage at the bottom. What would you say about the prediction of this matchup?
I think he has the edge with Wilson. I might say that Stephon Diggs is probably going to have a better game than Metcalf or Woods. I think Woods and Thielen. If Thielen has like 20-point games, or Thielen has like 7-point games, and Robert Woods is the same way. So I think that's the X factor of the matchup is what Thielen and what Robert Woods does. Is Robert Woods going to score his 7 points? Is Thielen going to score his 7 points? Or are they going to score 20? You know, I think that's a big key. I like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was a really good player at South Carolina. He's dealt with some injuries, but I like Deebo a lot. So, like, I think that's a good start. Now, I like my start a little bit better having Mostert. I think Mostert's more due for a touchdown. I think they're going to be running the ball a good amount. I was going to start Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards tore his ACL. Not even tripping on it. I don't give a fuck. I'll just add somebody else. And then I think Sanders, my kicker, is definitely better than McManus. I will say when you have a Denver kicker, though, when they get to kicking that altitude, they can get some longer field goals. But, yeah, their offense is unproven. I do like McManus, but he's playing at the Giants, so, you know, no altitude to help him out. Hooper is the biggest big-name piece of shit out there. I don't know why anybody in their right mind would ever draft fucking Hooper.
I love it.
He never catches no fucking touchdowns. They always throw to the other touchdowns. If it's Njoku or Harrison Bryant,
or run
or
the damn
he'll
ball.
figure out someone else to throw to. And then Patriots defense. I mean, Patriots defense is supposed to be better this year, but it's like when you have a team that has a shitty offense, you know what is the defense going to really be able to do for you? I'm not really. I mean, I don't think my defense is a whole lot better, but it's kind of like the Bills. Offense, you know, the Chiefs' offense is going to be forcing the other teams to like push the ball, so it's going to create turnovers. So that's why I like the Chiefs' defense. And they've had games where they score like a bunch of points. You know, if you incorporate the punting and kicking returns that they potentially can get for you, I think the Chiefs are a pretty good defense. I like Sanders better than McManus. Sanders is a pretty for sure kicker, and Dolphins, you know, they kick a lot of field goals. I feel like. Gesicki is not a lot better than Hooper. I will say that. They're about par. I think the main difference, though, okay, if Hurts can be serviceable, I think Russell Wilson's going to have a good game. But I just think that my running backs are way too fucking strong. Like, McCaffrey's going to kick Elliott in the fucking shins and fucking Hilaire. Okay, James Robinson had a great year last year. I've heard nothing but bad things about him all summer. That, you know, there's going to be other guys in that, you know, they're going to be throwing the ball more this year. They're not going to be so heavily on James Robinson as much this year. I had James Robinson, I think, in another one of my leagues last year. Very, very good player. He was a must-start player every week. But I'm not seeing it this year. Everything that I've read said to stay as far away from him and stay as far away from Josh Jacobs as possible. And so, like, whenever I was drafting James Robinson, when I saw his name, there wasn't even any like thought. I just went right past him. Like, he was an undraftable guy for me this year.
Yeah, I think he's due for regression. I agree.
So, and then, I mean, my thing about Weston's team, wide receiver's pretty strong. If you scroll down to his bench, these running backs fucking suck. He's got
Lindsey's unstartable.
A backup, and a guy that's a rookie that's going to be sharing time with Melvin Gordon. Like, at the end of the day, with all due respect, Weston, your running backs fucking suck.
He's got a decent top two, but considering I don't trust Robinson either, and Zeke was on my explicit do not draft list, and the only reason he fell to Weston is because I passed up on him, I'm in 100% agreement with you here, Jackson. I think you get the advantage for the opening week.
Yeah, I'm taking that advantage. If Hurts gets me at least 15, I'm winning. As long as Hurts doesn't shit the bed, I'm winning.
Agreed. And I think one thing worth noting is, unlike a lot of people who would flip a coin with an unproven quarterback, you're not the type to just stick with him and keep sticking it out and losing. If Hurts starts to fuck up, you don't have any problem getting a Sam Darnold type guy to fill in, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is they're playing fucking Atlanta week 1.
Yeah.
Like,
even if
Actually, he's probably the best stream option for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't beat Atlanta's defense, like, it's probably not going to be a good year for you, you know?
I mean, before you know it, Deshaun Watson's going to get traded, and he's going to be starting somewhere.
That'll be interesting if that does happen, like, midway through the year. We can move on here, though. We've got Cam Joke versus Ted Lasso's Dream Team, which, of course, is No Fried Mark. Swing and a miss on the name. I think he should have stuck with, like, Chinese food themed, but if we want to fuck this matchup rather briefly, this has Kelsey and Rodgers and Henderson. And when I look at No Fried's running backs here, I have absolutely no trust at all. And that's what sticks out to me like a sore thumb. The guy's starting Sterling Shepard in his flex. I think No Fried's team is pretty unimpressive.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad about saying that Weston's running backs were trash because No Fried's doing him a whole lot more. I like Najee Harris a lot, though. I think Najee Harris is going to have a huge year. That's who I wanted to draft in the second round if he would have been there. So I do like Najee Harris. Unproven, though. And then other than that, what he started backup? Or no, that was scroll up.
Keep going, you're good.
Will you scroll up? Daryl Henderson. Daryl Henderson. Sonny Michel will be the starter by probably week 4. So, it might last for a week or so. Cooper Kupp. I love Cooper Kupp. I hate Juju Smith-Schuster. Love Travis Kelce, but is he going to be able to get it done for you every week? No. Sterling Shepard. Not high on Sterling Shepard. Yeah, I mean, defense. Steelers defense was the best defense in the league last year. Probably be pretty good this year. Yeah, I like Cam. I like Logan Thomas. I like Robbie Anderson. A.J. Brown, I think, will have a good year. Deontay Johnson, that's another good pick. Dalvin Cook, he has a top-tier running back. Prescott should have a pretty good year. His one weakness is David Montgomery. That was a don't draft player. So, I mean, if he has a good year, then that'll be good for him. But, yeah, I think Cam wins this matchup pretty easily.
I agree with you, and I have just a couple of questions. Najee Harris, over under 160 points.
Over, for sure.
Juju Smith-Schuster, over under 160 points.
I think he'll go over that. No, I'm going to say under because they have Claypool and they have Deontay Johnson. So I think under.
Claypool or Smith-Schuster, who will have more points by the end of the season?
Claypool, for sure. And I think Deontay Johnson has more points than both of them.
Excellent. I think I agree with you across the board, and I think Juju's really taken a hit for people who thought that AB's leaving. He's the number one guy. Those people have been proven wrong. I think it was rather obvious at this point that safety help that Antonio Brown denoted and forced from the defenses really helped Juju, and I think he's sort of shrunk when it's come to being the top guy. So
not to toot our own horn, but I'm pretty sure we predicted that last year.
Yes, he was definitely a guy that I stayed the fuck away from. He was on the no draft list. Absolutely. Here's just a fucking knuckle duster of a matchup. CGauch and Spence. This one's going to be great, dude. Oh, Jackson, what jumps out at you? Because I've been opening these matchups. I want to hear what you think opening up and what position really matters here.
Well, when I'm looking at this, I really like Spencer's wide receivers. I'm not as big of a fan on his running backs. Obviously, we talked about Kamara, but he probably took Kamara at a time where he was probably the best available.
Fourth.
Melvin Gordon, piece of shit, would never draft him. I think Tom Brady's going to have a serviceable year. I like Tom Brady.
Top 10 in QB rank?
I'm hoping.
I think
I drafted him in another one of my leagues, but
I think he'll be 8 or 9.
I think he's going to be serviceable.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I like DJ Moore a lot. I like Calvin Ridley, but I really do believe Calvin Ridley is going to have a little bit of a juju effect this year with no Julio. That's why I'm kind of glad that I didn't draft Ridley this year because I think that he's going to digress. Now, I do think that Ridley is the best route in the league, and he's going to still make some things happen. But at the end of the day, I think not having Julio is going to be really, really crucial for him. Waller, great tight end. I like Waller a lot. Not really a big fan of his flex just because this isn't a PPR league. So Edmonds isn't going to catch as many passes or get as many points for catching passes. And, Connor's kind of the guy there. So I don't really like that flex option. Matt Gay is a very underrated kicker. I like Matt Gay. Bucks defense, really good defense. Saints defense, like I've heard good things about Saints defense, but the fact that Drew Brees isn't there and they don't have the high power defense, I don't feel as good about their defense. Zerline's just a big name at this point. I mean, he might be okay with the Cowboys offense, but he's not Greg the Leg of the Rams anymore.
That's a name pick. I agree.
And then, Christian's running backs are hella strong. Henry, Carson, Antonio Gibson. I mean, those three are kicking Spencer's running backs in the knees.
Lots of fucking carries from those guys. Lots of volume.
Now, I like Chris Godwin, and it's a good counter for tonight's matchup. Him playing Brady. I think that's a good counter. Jared Jeudy is, projected to have a good year after, not really having as good of a year as he did last year. But, I mean, it looks like Christian drafted 3 running backs to start his draft, and then he had to get Murray. He got Murray pretty early on. I think Murray definitely over Brady. It's really going to depend on can his wide receiver and his tight ends, can they handle Spencer's wide receiver and tight end. I think that's going to be kind of the big deal on here. What happens right there in those 3 positions with Tunyon, Jeudy, Godwin versus Moore, Ridley, and Waller.
Agreed.
That's going to be a big deal. And, I mean, if Kamara has one of his 40-point games, that's going to help Spencer out too.
How do you think that Drew Brees' retirement affects the power of the various Saints fantasy players remaining?
I honestly think Kamara's value goes up because I think that and the fact that Michael Thomas is out, I think he's going to be looked at as like the offense for them.
The carry.
So, Kamara might have like a really good year. He's just the guy that I wanted to stay away from because their offense is too much of an unknown. I don't know if Winston's going to come out, play good the first 2 weeks, then have 3 of the worst games of his life. And then, we've got the Taysom Hill show going.
Yep.
I have literally no idea what's going to happen with the Saints this year. Like, I don't know if I should consider them an okay team or if I should consider them a bad team because they're in a division with some other bad teams when you talk about the Falcons and the Panthers.
Yeah.
So, like, they may be able to hold their own, but I'm not really sold on the Saints. Like, I feel like a lot of people are looking at that Packers-Saints game week 1 as like, oh, this is a fun, good matchup. And it's like, do y'all motherfuckers not know that Drew Brees is not here anymore?
Yes,
like the Packers are probably going to shit all over the Saints. Like, bad.
Agreed.
That's how I'm looking at that game.
Whenever Drew Brees left, it occurred to me that Sean Payton just absolutely loves Taysom Hill and was pretty much looking at this guy to lead the offense for years and years and had this almost like weird obsession with him. And I get that it's Winston. And I get that he's declared the starter. But for me, man, it's like Taysom Hill over 15 snaps in the backfield of the offense. I think especially in the red zone, Drew Brees being gone is going to make Sean Payton ask himself, all right, well, it's time for the Taysom Hill gimmick set. I think we're going to see way more Taysom Hill-centric gimmick formations than people are expecting. I think a lot of the people that targeted the Saints' weapons are expecting a Jameis Winston Buccaneers-like era where it's like, oh, well, he's just going to air it out. Like, they're going to get behind, and it's just all the receivers are going to benefit, and Chimera is going to do better too. The Saints were a team, like the Cowboys, I avoided. I don't have any faith in the Saints this year. I think they're going to have a losing record. And I think when Winston slings it around like a moron, he's just going to put Taysom Hill in because he's had a man crush on him for a half decade.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I was kind of surprised when they named Winston the starter because
too.
I just feel like his ceiling is only so high. With Taysom Hill, yeah, I mean, he's not a top-tier quarterback or he's really not even like a starting QB, but like the little sets that you can do with him and stuff, I mean, and that might be a reason that he's not starting because they're like, oh, these little sets are going to be more beneficial to our offense than to just have him starting all year long. But I think the offense is going to be a hell of a lot more successful with Hill in the lineup, and it might get to a point where they're just like having to put Hill in the lineup at all times because that's the only way they get any production out of the offense.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think you know what Winston is at this point in his career. You know he's a gunslinger. You know he's undisciplined. He's like a combo of Brett Favre and Jamarcus Russell, dude. Like he's just gonna let that fucking thing fly. And Sean Payton, even though he's an incredibly intelligent offensive mind, what he really needs to do to get this offense working is have Taysom Hill in about 50+% of his snaps. I don't care if it's at fullback or fucking receiver. You have to put Hill in to make the defensive coordinator's job a nightmare. If you're going to come out here and call the exact same style offense you called with Drew Brees, with fucking read plays and crossing routes and whatnot with Winston, you're just going to have a turnover-filled, mediocre team. So I really...
Well, dude, you got to realize when you got a Drew Brees or an Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, they have the ability to like change plays at the line. You know, they're able to see like what the defense is in and know like what play to go to.
Yep.
You're telling me fucking Jameis Winston's going to be able to do that? Fucking hell no. You know?
Exactly. Jameis Winston sees the defense line up with two deep safeties, and he's like, looks like I'm going to have to air it out extra far, LOL. The guy just doesn't get it. He's like stuck in that college mindset of he's just going to outthrow the safety and corner. So what are your thoughts on this matchup prediction-wise?
I think Murray's going to have a huge game. I think he's going to score a lot of points in like a shootout. Henry's going to do really good. Carson's going to have a good game. I just think that those three guys and then Antonio Gibson, I think it's going to be too much even if DJ Moore and Ridley and Waller all have big games. So I'm going with Christian on this one.
I agree with you. I think Chase Edmonds is going to have a rough time. And the thing that really jumps out at me is Henry versus Arizona. Lock him in for 15. This is a guy that gets so many touches. I know they upgraded their passing game.
Like, you're telling me Melvin Gordon's going to have fucking 12 points? You're telling me that Chase Edmonds is going to have 9 points? Like,
exactly.
Those are some fucking nice projections, you know?
I think Edmonds will have less than 5 and Gordon less than 10. I do think DJ Moore will have over 10, but overall, I see this.
Kamara won't have 18 either.
Yeah, to me, this is Gauch over Spencer, 98-95.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to the final week here. This is A.B. and Aaron, a somewhat interesting...
Oh, I'm surprised his name isn't changed yet.
Yeah, I don't know what is up with A.B. in terms of changing his ID, but he thinks it's a Facebook status or something. It's like every fucking morning with this guy. I just call it A.B.'s team. Whenever we talk about activity, you got to stay active in the league. I guess, AB thinks
a little bit too active.
Yeah, when we say active, we mean like try to make good pickups. AB thinks it means change his ID, drunkenly trade away his best players, and pick guys that blew their knee out. But let's get into the matchup here, because this is a really interesting one. Aaron is a guy who was in a weak division for years and didn't really take advantage of it, although I think his team is decent. What are your thoughts on Justin Jefferson? This is a guy who was top tier last year as a rookie going into his sophomore season. Is he due for regression, you think?
Nope. He's going to have another huge guy that I wanted if I was going to take a wide receiver kind of early. Like, I'm sold on this guy. Watched him in college. Watched him. I actually, in my other league, drafted this guy in the late rounds, and he didn't really do anything week 1, week 2, so I dropped him for like a hot waiver wire guy.
Oh, no.
What I know, 2 weeks later, this dude's scoring, 20, 25, a couple weeks here and there. I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's one of the future faces of the NFL at the wide receiver position. I really like both of Aaron's wide receivers, Lamb and Jefferson. And I like Ayuk a lot, too. Brandon Ayuk's due for a big, big year. He's another guy that you better learn how to say his name right because this boy's going to be around for a minute. And then I think Justin Herbert, I think he's kind of like he's a little bit more proven than a Jalen Hurts. But he's a guy that I'm like, I was not as high on as like a lot of people were. But like to say that he couldn't have a big year, that'd be lying. Like he could potentially have like a really big year. Just the position that the Chargers could be in, maybe like chasing points and stuff like that. I think he'll be a serviceable guy. I can't remember who the other fucking quarterback was. Oh, Tannehill. Tannehill will be all right. He's got Fitzmagic on the bench. I like that. And then like Eckler is questionable for week 1. So if he doesn't play, then AB's like super fucked. I mean, He's already pretty fucked, but he's pretty super fucked. Then he's got 2 tight ends on his team, and ain't nobody going to want Mark Andrews because Mark Andrews will score 17 points 1 week, and then he'll score 5 for 5 weeks in a row, and then you'll take him out of your lineup, and then he'll score 17 that week you didn't start him.
True.
So
fantasy poison.
Mark Andrews, yeah, if I was him, I would just try to unload Kettle for some running backs somewhere else because, if he's okay with starting Andrews and giving up Kittle, he probably can get a lot more out of Kittle than he can. And that kid sucks. Singletary fucking sucks.
Yeah.
They don't fucking run the ball in Buffalo. They throw the ball.
Yeah, he's like one of those PPR only type running backs.
And so they're always trying to get the Zach Moss guy as the starter, anyways.
Yep.
There for the Bills. So
and he's
I like
any
Devontae
good.
Adams, but Devontae Adams is not going to be able to produce more than Lamb and Justin Jefferson combined. And then Galladay's a big name. I've heard, Galladay's been a really good guy for Detroit, in his tenure there.
Of course.
And, he got traded to the Giants, and I think this is a year of regression for him. I just think that I hate Daniel Jones.
Me too.
Like, I hate that
machine.
whole offense. Yeah.
I don't trust him. It's like Saquon.
Well, it's kind of like they're like, oh, well, this guy had the same Peyton Manning and Eli Manning, and he's going to be just as good as them. He's got a real strong arm. He fits the mold. He looks like a quarterback in the NFL, tall and white.
Yeah.
And this kid is just a piece of shit.
Turnover machine.
You should have known. Okay, who the fuck goes to Duke and comes out of Duke as a football player? Nobody.
He ain't Christian Laettner, I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah.
I look at Austin's team, and you know what I ask myself, Honcho? Why in the hell did this guy trade for a tight end? Made no sense. Now he's got Kittle and Andrews, and he's just begging for people to trade him as he has gaping holes at running back.
Do you know who he gave up for that?
Yeah, Julio. Julio Jones straight up.
Oh, well, I'm not high on Julio, so I can't fault the trade. But I'd rather have Julio there than Galladay. I'll say that. And then,
you can only
his
start
running
one tight
backs are
end,
just
too.
so fucking ass.
Yeah.
Like, his running backs are ass of ass.
You don't trust Eckler, do you? Because I don't. Like, do you trust Eckler?
I like Eckler in a PPR league where he's a pass catcher, but like in a standard league like this, like it's a little bit harder to love him.
Yeah, or as a running back too, he's acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be one thing if he had like another good running back on this team that was like, oh, okay, he's got Eckler and he's got, this other pretty good guy, but it's like that's not there. You're basically starting a guy that I would rather be starting Nyheim Hines, who is like a legitimate backup, but he's like actually like a good pass catcher.
Right.
Like he probably is gonna, and like look, the projection even speaks for itself. 5 points. What other starting running backs do you know that is going to be projected 5 fucking points?
Yeah, usually the projections are inflated too, so it's like you kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
This is like a guy who you're pretty much hoping he's just going to catch a flat pass and score. You know, he's not a guy who's going to consistently get the looks to put up the points. Singletary, a hard flex option. So if you go into fucking week one starting a guy who is peak rank flex and then your other guy has a big Q by his name, not feeling very good. So I'm definitely going to give the edge to Aaron here.
You know, a lot of times when you look at people's teams, you know, you're like, okay, I know I can kind of see how they drafted. You know, they're like, okay, they went wide receiver heavy, or okay, they went running back heavy, and their quarterback's a little bit weak, or their tight end's a little bit weak, or
True.
something like that.
You know what build
when you
they
look at
did.
AB's team, I can't even tell, you know, when he drafted who, when he drafted where.
Yeah.
Because, like, you look at it, like you're looking at his team and you're looking at his running backs and his wide receivers, and you're like, okay, so he's got to have a top tier quarterback. And then you look and you're like, he's got Tannehill, so he had to draft Tannehill kind of late. It's like, okay, you went Eckler round 1, Devontae Adams round 2, and then I guess you went Julio round 3, traded him for Kettle. So, I mean, the first 3 rounds aren't bad, but then it's like after that, like, what the fuck were you doing?
Yeah, you know what this team screams? I wasted an early pick on a guy with a blown out knee. It definitely shows.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It definitely shows, though, you're right, because you're looking at it and it's like, so where did you put your draft capital? Were you simulcasting the Pat McAfee show when you were drafting? Because what in the hell is this team at week 1? You got 2 of the top 5 tight ends, and you got basically a running back who's never going to be good or consistent. And your second wide receiver, a guy who, yeah, he's wide receiver 1 on his team, but Daniel Jones is not that talented. The Giants are going to be last place in that shit tier NFC East. I have the least faith in the Giants out of all those shit teams.
I guess my question is like, when you did draft a guy as good as Mark Andrews, or is like high value at tight end as Mark Andrews, it's like, why did you go for Kittle?
Great question, and I think the
It's
answer is to spite Ben.
Yeah,
That might be the whole of it.
Well, the thing that's funny is like this whole how, you know, Mark is you know, kind of got fucked because he auto drafted. It's like AB kind of like was like, oh, let me clean your fuck up. Here, I'll take Kittle. You can have Julio, and I'm going to be stuck with 2 tight ends that nobody's going to want to get rid of. It's like he took on Mark's problem for him.
Agreed. And the deal that he gave him, it's hilarious because even though it was fair, it was like, all right, I'm going to give up this established name for an established name at about the same ADP for a position that I'm not weak at all. Like one of the thinnest positions in the league, and you're going to fucking trade for it when you have one of the only other guys. Because it's like Kelsey, Waller, Andrews, Kittle. Those are the top 4 guys. You already have one of them. Why are you trading for another? So I just really hope that AB is not going to have another disastrous GMing season. Hopefully he doesn't do too many drunk trades or go crazy, because already it's sort of looking a little bit threadbare on his team, and I'm thinking Aaron the whole way here. I think Jefferson's going to pop off for 15. Herbert will do well. Aaron Jones will get a dozen plus. And even though I don't necessarily love Aaron's team, I definitely give him the edge this week.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, are there any closing thoughts or call-outs you would like to do now that we're concluding this exceptionally exciting Week 1 preview? Maybe some division fucking predictions from you? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think that you're definitely in the weakest division.
Agreed.
I think AB gets last, Ben gets third, and then I think Aaron's going to have a pretty good team. I think you and Aaron will kind of be battling throughout the year, but I'm going to give the edge to you. Just, I don't know what it is, but Aaron, to me, is like literally, maybe his luck has changed, but like when we were growing up, like Aaron had like the least amount of luck. Like he was just as good at Call of Duty as us, but he could never get a nuke. You know what I mean? It's like Aaron has just always had the worst luck in the world. And like I've noticed with fantasy too, sometimes like guys that are supposed to go off don't go off, or like a guy will get hurt right before the game starts and he can't get him out of his lineup. I just think Aaron's bad luck will continue in that division. I I honestly think that Cameron has a pretty good team. I think Mark gets last because of his draft and being in a tough division. I think the only thing that would save him is if Cameron doesn't pay attention throughout the year. If Cameron could just pay attention throughout the year and add a waiver wire guy like every 3 weeks, he might. Like, he honestly doesn't draft that bad.
Agreed. It's always the management that does Cam and Aaron in it, from my point of view. Like, Cam doesn't do shit. Aaron does too much. Like, dumb stuff.
Yeah, and I think Spencer and Christian probably have the best teams in that division. I'm looking, as much as I want to sit here and be like, okay, Spencer's going to win the division. Ever since I've joined this league, all I've heard about is how good Spencer is, but I ain't never seen shit. You know what I mean? Like, I've handled him in my division in the past, and I mean, he's really not that scary. So I mean, I guess I need him to prove something. And then Christian's definitely gotten better over the last couple of seasons, and he had a really good draft. So I'm going with him to win the division. Other than if he picks up some injuries, like he's had some in the past, he's got some bad injuries where it's kind of derailed his season.
Right.
But I'm going with Christian to win it, with Spencer at a close second. Surprise team if Cameron can stay active all year. Hopefully he listens to this. If you can stay active all year, I think that you could potentially compete in that division. And then my division, I think I win the division. That's me being biased. Obviously, Weston is one of the best fantasy owners in our league. He's going to do the waiver wire all year just like me, and I think me and him will be battling it out all year. Hopefully, I can come out on top. Wouldn't be surprised if Weston comes out on top. I think Lily, surprisingly, has a good year. I always have issues with her. I think she's probably the luckiest of the fantasy owners. So I feel like probably knows the least amount, but somehow can pull some shit off. And then I think Kevin gets dead last. I think his early pick of Mahomes will be his demise. A lot of people always want to go for a quarterback early, thinking that it's going to carry them throughout the season. And then they look at their running backs and their wide receivers and they go, oh, shit, this is not going to help me compete week to week.
Yep.
Because what I did early in my rounds, which I kind of did that last year with Lamar Jackson, so I'm not talking shit. But yeah, so that's how I feel about that. If I was going to pick a winner if I was going to pick a preseason winner, I'm going to go with Wiley as preseason winner. I wanted to go with Christian or myself, but I feel like that's kind of biased. I don't think Christian is going to win since he won last year, and I feel like Weston and Spencer are also guys that could potentially win, and maybe Aaron. I think as a fun prediction, Ben over under 6 wins.
Yeah, I love it. I freaking love it, dude. And if you're asking me directly,
yes,
I'm gonna have to take the under there, Honcho.
I'm taking the under, dude.
Swift, I feel like is gonna be horrible, and he took him 3rd round.
What if Mixon doesn't pan out?
Oh,
this is going to be so funny.
Well, and God forbid, I don't want to obviously never wish injury on people, but Lamar Jackson runs a lot, high injury risk. This is one of those teams that I look at, like, if the quarterback goes down, how do you recover? Like, the whole fucking strategy is predicated around Lamar Jackson.
Well, I want to see, like, throughout the year, like, even if Ben is losing or however it's going, I hope he is just super active on the waiver wire and just being like, see, I don't care.
Yes.
See, I don't care. And just, like, adding people left and right, like, looking real active,
Yes. What do you think about the level of butthurt around the trade being vetoed? Because from my perspective, it was so obviously imbalanced, and obviously, like I touched on it with CGauch and Ben in the last TWIF, but to me, it's like, yeah, you like obviously rip someone off, it gets vetoed, and Ben's over here like, the veto's for if people accidentally accept trades for their whole team for only a kicker. It's like, no, dude, that's not what the veto's for. You thought that trade was imbalanced and over the line, don't you?
Yeah, I did too. Well, the thing that's the stupidest about it is, like, when Ben's like, okay, this is just good managerial. I offered him this, and he didn't want this, and then he took this. He took like a lower trade than what I was actually going to give him. It's like you just like basically blew the lid on the whole situation. Like you even feel as if that this trade isn't fair. You know what I mean? Like you literally sat there and said in the TWIF, I was just throwing this at him to kind of make my other deal sound better.
Yeah.
Type thing. And so, like, I feel bad because at the end of the day, Ben is right. You know, it was a good managerial thing. You know, it's the same shit Christian did to AB last year with the Aaron Rodgers shit. But, like, I don't know. I mean, when I saw that trade, like, the first thing I thought when it came to my email was, like, this is not a fair trade.
Yeah.
But then, like, when I went to veto it, I was like, I really don't know if enough people are even paying attention that will veto this. So I was really honestly more surprised that it got vetoed because I know we've had trades in the past that I thought were even more bullshit and somehow they got through.
Right.
It's like I was a little thrown off on that. Yeah. But as far as like I honestly really am glad that it got vetoed because it just made it like so comical, you know, how Ben got mad and then Ben, you know, kind of changed his name. You know, according to the to the trade not going through, and I know like throughout the year we're just gonna hear from Ben
the whining. Every time he loses, the kettle goes off.
The only reason I'm not gonna win more than 6 games is because that trade got vetoed. You know, like it's just gonna be like the theme of the season. I feel like for him.
Oh, I know, and it's like once you like commit to the ID and picture change, it's like. I guess I'm gonna whine about this every time I lose, and what do you like? Whenever I hear people say like, the purpose of the veto is only for accidental trades, it's like, give me a break. Like the whole reason the veto is there is so people like don't fuck the league up for everyone else. If there's
I remember like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I was fucking killing this whole fucking league. And Weston and Spencer did this shady ass fucking trade like week 13, where I swear it was like Carson Wentz for fucking like Andrew Luck or something like that. And like Andrew Luck was killing it, and like Carson Wentz was shitting the bed, or it was like the other way around or something. And I just remember being like, this is a fucking bullshit ass trade. And I was like, this is all just to fuck me. And like I don't remember if it got vetoed or what the fuck happened with it. I remember I was bitching hard about it though. Like I straight up told Weston and Spencer, I'm like, y'all are fucking colluding. Like this is straight fucking collusion. Like you're trading like there was like a tight end involved or something like that too. I was just like, this is total horseshit. So that's the only time that I've ever had any issue. My biggest thing that I would say about the whole veto thing that sucks is when it's like week 4, week 5, and people are mad because they lost and they don't want to check their lineup until like the next Sunday or whatever.
Yes.
And like it's like I'm sitting here like basically texting people being like, hey, can you go veto that vote? Because it's total bullshit. You know, like
Agreed.
It's like I'm having to like work myself to get this thing vetoed when it's like if everybody would just pay attention, they'd be like, yeah, this shit needs to be vetoed too.
Agreed.
You know?
And it's sort of like two sides of the coin where you're sitting there like, my God, it's 3 weeks in and no one is active enough to veto this shit. But it's also the other side of the coin of like, this guy has 2 of the top 4 tight ends and doesn't have a starting running back. And I'm sitting here offering him running back help for one of his tight ends and he's not answering the trade. So I can see why Ben got upset about it being vetoed in a league where it's like, oh, we can't get people to trade. But it was so obviously just like a ripoff from an idiot that was like fucking shut up the auto draft. And, you know, good for Ben for getting a good trade through. I'm happy for him. But ultimately it's like...
I mean, that's the job of the rest of the league.
Yeah.
You know? And if the rest of your league is not going to do what we did, then it needs to be up on the commissioner. The commissioner needs to be the one to veto
all powerful
and accept trades.
Yeah.
You know, because in my other league, I've kind of I switched it to like commissioner choice because nobody would fucking veto. So it was like I was just like, what I would do is I would like text both parties and I'd be like, okay, are you in agreement of this? Okay, are you in agreement of this? Like, Is this straight with y'all? And if they both agreed on it, and I didn't feel like there was any, bullshit, because there was a situation like 2 or 3 years ago where Dom was playing in our league and his dad was playing in our league. And his dad sent him, I don't even know if you remember this guy's name, because he was literally a starter for maybe like 3 weeks. His name was like Orleans Darkwa. He was like a running back for the Giants at the time. And they traded Norland's Darkwa, or whatever his damn name is, for Ben Roethlisberger. And this is like one of those seasons that Ben Roethlisberger had AB, Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah,
and I remember like vetoing the fuck out of it. Yeah, I remember vetoing the fuck out of it and telling everybody else to veto it. And then this fucking trade goes through, and then Dom wins at the end of the year because he has fucking he has Ben Rodgers scoring like 40 or 50 points.
Yeah.
Like in the last week of the season or something like that. And I'm just like, it's kind of like that trade last year. I mean, you don't realize it, but like some trades like define the season. Like, I mean, you think about it, if Christian wouldn't have got Aaron Rodgers for the little bit of pieces that he got, I don't know if he would have won last year.
Totally agree.
You know?
Yep.
So I think it's imperative to stay on top of the league with the trades.
I agree. And to close the episode, I just want to point out 2 things. That A, whenever that egregious trade got accepted, like no one was having to like text the Watsons or beg them to veto it. It was such horseshit that as soon as it happened, people got the email and were like texting each other and be like, what the fuck, LOL, like insta vetoing it. Then when that Julio for Kittle trade went through, like nobody except Ben even gave a fuck. It was like clearly balanced, and I thought it was funny that whenever I talked to fucking Christian and Ben was like, in the history of the league, can you tell me one time where a trade hasn't been vetoed, or a trade got vetoed? And I'm like, no, and that shows how fucked up it is, and he thought that was like a trump card. But do you have any closing thoughts for this episode? I thought we did a great job, and I'm very excited for football to start.
No, I'm ready for AB's name has been the same for too long. I need to see it change.
A whole 2 hours.
I really, this is his best name that he's had this year. I really like this name.
It's actually,
this is by far his best one.
I agree, and it's like an actual team name with matching picture. Half the time he does it, it's just like a couple random nouns.
And he gets extra points because I don't know if anybody else knows this, but Drake is wearing that jersey in that picture. So he gets extra points for that. He's on top of his social stuff.
Well,
his social game is on top.
Well, Jackson, I'm sure by the time he watches this, it would have already been changed twice. So, all right.
No, we got to keep it.
Yeah, he'll keep it for a whole hour. All right, that was TWIF Week 1. Thanks for watching. Sub for more.